For 2 decades, Red Skelton made millions laugh on television. He was the happy clown, the silly drunk, the mischievous child. To the public, he was wholesome, family-friendly, and timeless. But behind the scenes, the people who worked with him saw another side. They even had a name for it, the Red Skelton Dirty Hour. In private rehearsals, he told jokes that would have destroyed his clean image forever. And after his death, lawyers uncovered a clause in his will that, if carried out, would have erased his entire legacy. The truth about America's favorite clown was more complicated and far darker than anyone imagined. Red came into the world already carrying tragedy. Born on July 18, 1913, in Vincennes, Indiana, he never met his father. Joseph Ahard had been a circus clown who left the big top for a quieter life as a grocer. But fate caught him in the very world he had tried to leave. He died in a circus tent collapse, leaving Red's mother, Ida Mae, with 4 children and no income. Life after that was brutal. Ida Mae scrubbed floors, ran elevators, and took any job she could just to keep food on the table. The neighbors didn't sugarcoat it. The Skeltons were dirt poor. Families in town even warned their daughters to stay away from Red, certain he was destined for nothing. Those harsh words stuck with him. Instead of breaking him, they fueled him. At just 7 years old, Red took to the streets as a newsboy, shouting headlines in Vincennes to bring in a few precious coins. That job became his classroom. He studied people's faces, learned how to grab their attention, and discovered something powerful. Laughter made them stop and listen. He wasn't just selling newspapers, he was performing. That lesson stayed with him for life. Then, when he was 10, fate intervened again. While selling papers outside the Pantheon Theater, a famous comedian named Edwin spotted the boy. Win bought every paper Red had and took him backstage. For the first time, Red saw the world of show business up close, bright, fast, and magical. That single moment gave him a dream to chase. And chase it he did. Soon after, Red left school entirely and joined Doc Lewis's traveling medicine show.
But it lit
At
up
only
the airwaves.
10 years old,
The response
he was riding
overwhelming.
across the
Fan
Midwest,
letters poured
selling
in.
fake cures while cracking jokes to make the crowds laugh. He wasn't just a child anymore, he was a performer, working like a grown man night after night. His mother would later say, Red didn't run away from home. His destiny caught up with him. By 14, he joined the John Lawrence Stock Company, attempting serious acting roles in 10 theaters, but something unexpected happened. Every time he tried to deliver a tragic line, audiences laughed. His gift wasn't drama, it was comedy. The company eventually left him stranded in a Missouri hotel, unpaid and abandoned, but Red didn't give up. He found his way onto a Mississippi riverboat show called The Cotton Blossom, where he danced, sang, and told jokes in every style imaginable. He even wore blackface, a common but regrettable practice of that era. Night after night, he learned to win over difficult audiences. That boat, drifting along the river, became his true training ground. By 15, Red was a seasoned vaudeville performer. He toured medicine shows, burlesque houses, minstrel circuits, and circuses, even following in his father's footsteps as a clown. He hosted Depression-era dance marathons where exhausted couples competed for prize money. He never stopped moving. While most boys his age were in classrooms, Red was learning under spotlights, sharpening his instincts in front of live crowds. In Kansas City, fate introduced him to a young usher named Edna Stillwell. She was sharp, honest, and bold enough to tell Red his jokes weren't good enough. That caught his attention. They married in 1931 when she was just 16, but Edna became far more than his wife. She became his manager, writer, and protector. She negotiated better contracts, wrote his jokes, and even helped him study for a diploma. Their biggest breakthrough came from a simple idea in a diner. After watching customers dunk donuts into coffee, they created a pantomime sketch called The Donut Dunkers. The act was absurd, brilliant, and unforgettable. It carried them from small stages to New York's Low State Theater in 1937. Soon after, Red was performing at the White House for President Franklin Roosevelt. Radio quickly came calling. In 1937, Red performed his donut routine on the Fleischmann's Yeast Art with Rudy Valley. The audience response was overwhelming, and NBC signed him to Avalon Time the next year. His silly voices, characters, and physical humor translated perfectly to the airwaves, with Edna writing much of his material. Red became one of radio's fastest rising stars. By 1941, he had his own program, The Raleigh Cigarette Show. This was where he introduced characters that would become national icons. Junior, the mean little kid, with his mischievous catchphrase, "I doed it," was so popular that newspapers used the line in war headlines. Kids even raised money to name a bomber plane "We doed it." Another fan favorite was Clem Cadidle Hopper, a slow-witted farmer inspired by a neighbor from Indiana. Red's radio humor was clean, silly, and timeless, something families could enjoy together. But in 1944, at the height of his radio fame, everything stopped. Red was drafted into the Army. MGM and his sponsors tried to get him a deferment, but it didn't work. His last show aired June 6, 1944, the day before D-Day. The very next day, Red Skelton became Private Skelton. Even in uniform, he couldn't escape performing. Between drills, he did comedy shows, sometimes 12 in a single day. In Italy, he performed 41 times in just 6 days. Soldiers adored him, but the pace destroyed him. He collapsed in Naples, suffering a breakdown that left him with a stutter and fragile health. By September 1945, he was discharged, still only a private. 10 weeks later, he was back on the air, but something had changed. Those closest to him noticed the darker undertones in his comedy. The boyish mischief was still there, but now there was sadness beneath the surface. In 1951, television became his next stage. The Red Skelton Show premiered on NBC and instantly became a hit. Families tuned in every week to see his beloved characters Clem, Jr., and especially Freddie the Freeloader, a silent tramp clown who lived with nothing but hope. Freddie was inspired by Red's late father, and Red poured his heart into him. The silent spot, where Freddie acted out entire stories without a word, became one of the show's most cherished segments. For nearly 20 years, Red Skelton dominated television. His show ranked in the top 10 for most of its run and even hit number 2 in the mid-1960s. He paid out of his own pocket to broadcast in color before CBS was ready. He won Emmys, filled auditoriums, and became a Tuesday night tradition for millions of families. But in 1970, CBS canceled him not because of ratings, but because of demographics. The network wanted younger, urban audiences and began what became known as the Rural Purge. Despite still ranking 7th in the nation, the Red Skelton Show was tossed aside along with the Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, and others. Red was crushed. "My heart has been broken," he admitted. NBC tried reviving him, but the changes killed the magic. By 1971, his television era was over. Offstage, tragedy struck harder. His beloved son, Richard, died of leukemia in 1958, just before his 10th birthday. His last words were a request for his father to buy his mother a red blanket for Mother's Day. That blanket became a lifelong symbol of his love. The loss shattered Red. He left Richard's room and touched for years, sitting in it alone, quietly. Grieving, his marriage to Georgia eventually fell apart under the weight of sorrow. Georgia herself struggled with alcoholism and depression, and in 1976, on the anniversary of Richard's death, she took her own life. Red turned inward. He painted clowns, beginning in childhood and continuing throughout his life. Some were cheerful, others mournful. By the 1980s, his paintings were selling for up to $80,000 each, bringing in millions annually. In many ways, his art expressed what his comedy, not the hidden pain of the man behind the smile. In private, Red was far from the clean-cut clown audiences knew. During rehearsals, he unleashed a flood of dirty jokes and dark humor. His crew called it the Red Skelton Dirty Hour. His third wife, Lothian, said he kept an entire side of his comedy locked away, jokester raw for television but necessary for him. to let out. In 1980, his legacy nearly disappeared entirely. His will contained a shocking clause. All recordings of the Red Skelton Show were to be destroyed upon his death. 13 of his former writers sued, knowing their lifetimes of work would vanish. Red eventually relented, realizing the importance of preservation. "Would you burn the only monument you've built in over 20 years?" he asked. His change of heart saved not only his legacy, but television history. Red Skelton lived out his later years quietly with his third wife, Lothian, on a California ranch. They raised horses, cared for bonsai trees, and stayed far from Hollywood's glare, but Red never stopped performing. He toured colleges, casinos, and concert halls, including Carnegie Hall, often doing 70 shows a year. Even without television, people still came, still laughed, and still loved him. On September 17, 1997, Red Skelton died of pneumonia at age 84. His final years were quieter, but his grief never fully lifted. His clown paintings, like his characters, carried both laughter and sorrow, a reflection of the man himself. Today, his hometown of Vincennes, Indiana, keeps his memory alive with the Red Skelton Museum of American Comedy. Opened on what would have been his 100th birthday, it houses his scripts, costumes, paintings, and even personal letters. His characters Clem, Cadidal Hopper, Junior the Mean Whittle Kid, and Freddie the Freeloader still live on in American memory. His clean humor influenced comedians like Robin Williams and Jim Carrey, proving that silly, wholesome laughter never goes out of style. Red Skelton spent his life making the world laugh while carrying grief the world never saw. To millions, he was the clown who never stopped smiling. But behind the makeup was a man who endured heartbreak, loss, and betrayal. In the end, his greatest performance wasn't just his comedy, it was his ability to keep giving joy, even when his own heart was broken.